Hi, my name is Scott Webb. I served in the United States Army, the active Army, from June of 1985 to June of 1988. And then I served in the U.S. Army Reserve from June of 1988 till August of 1992. My job when I was in the active Army, I was an infantryman. I started out as a rifleman and later a machine gunner. And then in my last duty station, I was a driver. During my Army Reserve time, I was a combat medic. I was able to change my specialty to become a combat medic. I started off with basic training, and advanced training was all put into one because I went in as an infantryman. I was at Fort Benning, Georgia from June of 85 to September of 85, and then I went to Fort Lewis, Washington, just kind of between Tacoma and Seattle. I was there, assigned there for 9 months, but 4.5 months of that I was actually sent to the Sinai Desert as part of the multinational peacekeeping forces. After Egypt and Israel signed their peace treaty in '79, there was an international peacekeeping force that sat in the middle of the Sinai Desert. And I was part of that for 4.5 months. When I came back from that, I was kind of voluntold that I would be sent to Korea. So at the end of May 1986, I was shipped over to Korea for a 1-year tour. Came back in June of 1987. I was there for exactly 1 year and 1 day. While I was in Korea, we did a 3-month tour on the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. And when I came back, I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is where I was made the battalion ammunition sergeant's driver for my last year of active duty. And during that time, we went to Germany in 1988 for a reforger, and our battalion was sent to West Berlin during the training exercises. So I was on both the demilitarized zone in Korea and the wall in West Berlin for a very short period of time. So the two major areas of the Cold War, I was there. When I got out in 1988, I went into the reserve. They allowed me to change my specialty to be a combat medic. I served as part of a field hospital unit out of Scott Air Force Base down near St. Louis. We were activated in October of 1990 for Operation Desert Shield. We went to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, landed there on the day before Thanksgiving of 1990, set up our field hospital, and then I was temporarily sent back to the 101st as part of the ground forces that went in on February 22nd, 1991 as part of Desert Storm. I served back in my old unit as a medic this time for the duration of the 100 hours of the war. Afterwards, I came back to my field hospital unit. We left there. We left Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in, I believe it was March of 91, and in August of 92, my time was up and I did not re-enlist. And I attained the rank of Specialist 4th Class, which was E4. Basically from 18 months in all the way till the end, I was a Specialist 4th Class. Well, I lived in the barracks because I was unmarried at Fort Benning, Georgia for basic. These were World War II barracks, so it was an entire platoon of 40 guys on bunk beds with a wall locker for the entire 3 months of our basic and advanced infantry training. When I went to what they call permanent party duty station, Fort Lewis, Korea, and Fort Campbell, Kentucky with the 101st barracks, and they varied widely. So when I was at Fort Lewis, they were older barracks, but we only had 2 per room with 2 regular beds. Everybody, you had a desk and a chair, and 1 bathroom shared between 2 soldiers. In Korea, we had kind of Quonset huts and there were 4 of us to a room, and there was a shared bathroom so there was like 16, a shared bathroom for 16 guys that had about, I think, 6 toilets and 6 sinks and 4 showers. And had actually fairly nice barracks in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It was 3 to a room, but you had your own room with just a common area, and all 3 shared a bathroom. So those were nice. The food was okay. It wasn't spectacular, and it wasn't bad. It was typical what you'd find in a large cafeteria. Breakfast is not a lot of variety. Breakfast was always eggs, biscuits and gravy, some bacon or sausage, and oatmeal. That's basically what breakfast was. They would have some fruit and donuts out there. Lunch and dinner would always have some type of a main dish with a side and bread, and they always had burgers and fries or hot dogs and fries on both. And that would be the same as if you were somewhere and they brought food out to you, it would be the exact same. When you were in the field on training exercises or deployed, you would get what was called an MRE, meal ready to eat, which is just a pouch so big that contained an entire meal inside of it, except for the water. You had to provide your own water. So it was a main course, which at that time there were only 6. I still can't remember the 6th one, but the 5 was ham loaf, turkey loaf, beef stew, chicken a la king, spaghetti and meatballs, and I don't remember what the other one was. It was some type of vegetarian. But with each one came a packet of instant coffee, creamer, sugar, salt, pepper, and you got a large cracker with either peanut butter or some type of jelly, dehydrated fruit that you would have to pour water in to rehydrate, and some type of dessert, usually a cookie or a brownie. And that's what you got to eat when they couldn't bring food to you because you were out in the field doing training or you were deployed, so they would just bring you out a pouch at MRE, and that's what we had. What did I do for fun? We didn't really have a lot of downtime. We had every barracks had except for basic training, had a common room. And the common room always had a pool table and a ping pong table, perhaps a foosball table. At Fort Lewis, we also had a poker table. I was often asked to play because I was really bad at it. It would have a set of recliners and couches and a television. And once you were done for the day, you could do what they call go toes up. So you could get in the recliner, put your feet up, and you could watch TV between your feet. They called it toes up. You knew you were done for the day when the first sergeant said, "Your toes up," and that meant you're done for the day. So we played a lot of cards. We spent a lot of time in the barracks as we were often on some type of rotation, either a quick reactionary force or we were on funeral duty or whatever, and we couldn't leave. So we played a lot of cards in the barracks, and we did go, there were recreational facilities. I loved to play Sunday basketball. Every place had a gym, and Sunday basketball was big. Soldiers would show up, form teams, and play a basketball tournament every Sunday. Whoever won got to stay on the court, so that was a lot of fun. I did have a car, and I made quite a bit of money way before Uber ever came around, driving my buddies around to different places, the mall, clubs, things like that, and they would pay me to do that. So that's what we did for fun. I grew up down in Kankakee, Illinois, which was made famous by David Letterman in the 90s when he called it the armpit of the country. He's not wrong. I just had really no prospects. I was about to graduate high school. My brother was a musical genius and had all kinds of scholarships. I did not. My parents made it clear they were not going to pay for my college. They didn't have the money. My sisters went off and got married. I was the youngest, and basically there were 2 factories. and a grocery store to bag groceries in, and neither one sounded good. I was also raised in a very patriotic home. We took many vacations, driving vacations when I was a kid. I got to see a lot of places, from the Rockies to the Everglades in Florida, the Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls. We went all kinds of places. I just fell in love with this country, and I wanted to serve and protect it. So since I didn't really have any other options, I decided to join the Army. I joined the delayed entry program in August of '84, did my senior year in high school, and I left for basic training 3 days after I graduated high school. So that was the reason I joined. I really wanted to make a career out of it, is what I wanted. But as with the best laid plans, it just doesn't happen. So when my active duty time ended in 1988, Congress had passed a law that they were reducing the number of the military because the Cold War was ending. So they told me I could not re-enlist active. I could only re-enlist as an Army reservist, which I did, and I was able to become a combat medic. And then I kind of took that and went to civilian paramedic school in 1990. Actually, I graduated from civilian paramedic school about 3 months before we were activated to go to the Desert Shield. And I turned that into a 28-year career as a paramedic and later a paramedic firefighter. So I wanted to get something, and it paid. I have a bachelor's degree, paid for by the GI Bill and the Illinois Veterans Grant. I was able to go to paramedic school and make a 28-year career out of it. And I like to think I helped a lot of people. So that's what I wanted to get out of it. I did. I made the best of friends, and I joined what was supposed to be what they called a cohort unit, meaning that we were supposed to go to basic and our AIT down at Fort Benning together. We were supposed to spend 2 years at Fort Lewis and then go to Korea for a year. That didn't happen. Once again, the best laid plans never work, especially in the military. But I did get transferred because I went to Korea a year early. I got transferred to another unit. They were the best of guys. They are still my friends to this day. I was in 1st Platoon. We had Staff Sergeant Chavez, Sergeant Ford, Corporal Morera. They are all still friends of mine to this day. All the guys I served with, the guys that were in the 3 guys that I shared a room with, Taryn Hawkins, Chris Lovin, and Little Jimmy. Everybody had a nickname. Mine was just Webby. Nobody was creative. I was just known as Webby. And I am still friends with them and lots of other guys from my squad. When we went up to the DMZ, we did 3 months up there. We had to do reconnaissance and ambush patrols. We did a lot of training together before we went to Korea. And they are still my friends to this day. I would give my life for them or anything they needed. They watched my back on those patrols in the guard post in the middle of the night in the DMZ with the North Koreans, and I had their back, and they are the best guys, and they are still my friends. The guys that I served with in the 101st at Fort Campbell, unfortunately I did not, and I've tried to find them, but I can't. Those were another great group of guys who were all in what was called support platoon. I was the ammunition sergeant's driver. They were the battalion commander's driver, the battalion sergeant major's driver. They drove the 2.5-ton trucks. That's what support platoon. We were drivers for the entire battalion, and which is battalion's about 450 soldiers. So those are great guys too, but unfortunately I did not keep in touch with them. But the guys I went to Korea, I'm still friends with to this day, many of them. And we have had some reunions. We've had them pass away. Guys in my platoon or even in my squad that passed away. My best friend, Bernie, passed away back in the 90s. And we have reunions. We visit Bernie's grave down in Nashville. He's buried in a national cemetery just outside of Nashville. So we have met down there and sat around Bernie's grave and had a few. And we toasted those that are not with us, and they are still my friends to this day. I think it taught me more than anything else The famous quote from Winston Churchill is never give up. Don't ever stop, don't ever give up. When you're going through hell, keep going as fast as you can. Things always change. They will always hopefully get better. And it taught me to just never give up, and that the people that I served with were the best, and I could count on them and they could count on me. And even when I went to my civilian career in the fire service, my partners, my engine and truck crews, later when I became a lieutenant, I could count on them because we were in it together. And as long as you're working together and you have each other's back, don't ever give up, and you will always persevere and make it through. That's the main thing that I remember and that the service taught me, something I bring to this day, is teamwork. Things, like I said, things change a lot. And the U.S. Army of today was not the U.S. Army of the 1980s and 90s, which was not the Army of the Vietnam era. When I went in, the threat was communism. I wanted to protect my country from it. I stood on the prefaces of two horribly communist countries, East Germany and North Korea, which is still there today. But today's generation faces different threats, both from within and without. But I just go back to don't ever give up. I believe this country is worth fighting for. It's what I believed when I joined, and I believe it to this day. Your friends and your family are worth fighting for. And whatever you decide to do with your life, I believe that hopefully by my joining, future generations wouldn't have to fight. That's kind of what I really wanted. But unfortunately, the world has changed greatly. We no longer face threats of communism, but we have terrorism and other things that happen. So don't ever give up. Just like my generation went through and ultimately defeated communism, we can defeat whatever this country faces now and make a better future. So I just urge the younger generation, I'm not urging you, I'm not a recruiter in any way, but do some type of service to your fellow humans. You can make a lot of money, but you can still help people out. You can serve in volunteer organizations, perhaps become a first responder, maybe even join the military. That's entirely up to you. But the most important thing is that we take care of each other. You watch out for your neighbors, you watch out for your family, and you be the kind of person that the over 1 million members of the military since 1775 had died for this country. Be the citizen that's worthy of their sacrifice.